Miami Valley's home for Fox News, the most powerful name in news. WHIO.
How do you gain a good reputation? By consistently doing the best you can and outperforming the competition. Dayton Door Sales has a reputation for the quality of their garage door installation and repair. Of course, quality depends as much on people as materials, and Dayton Door Sales employs only experienced professional installers and technicians. See for yourself why Dayton Door Sales is the region's leader for garage door service and installation at DaytonDoorSales.com. Integrity, value, experience. That's Dayton Door Sales.
Are you tired of dealing with the same health problems like headaches and back pain and still only utilizing a Band-Aid to cover up the symptoms? Then tune into Living the Full Life, where Dr. Juan explains how to get to the root cause of the problem and fix it. Saturdays from 9 to 10 a.m. on WHIO Radio.
The 50,000-watt giant of Miami Valley radio. From Lima to Kentucky, Columbus to Indianapolis, the station that cares about every town in between. We love this region as much as you do. Covering weather, traffic, and news is still our number one priority. Nothing is more important as keeping radio local, in touch with the community, and relevant to you and your family. Welcome to the legendary 1290 and 95.7 WHIO. Depend on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brian Kilmeade.
Hi, everyone. WHIO's Brian Kilmeade here, and I am coming to Dayton, and I want to see you in person. So join me at the Victoria Theater for my show, History, Liberty, and Laughs.
I love a good Kilmeade joke, obviously, just as much as the next guy and woman.
Also with Fox Nation. I'll be there Saturday, June 21st. So buy your tickets now at DaytonLive.org.
My self-esteem is gone.
And you can upgrade your tickets for a VIP experience where we can meet before the show backstage and take some pictures.
You'll see the picture online. What was in the picture?
Join me, Brian Kilmeade, in Dayton, all part of the year-long WHIO 90th anniversary celebration. And did I mention I might bring a few of my friends to join me? You never know who might show up.
You open it for the big names, but when you close the book, you remember the other names. We're not America without those so-called average everyday Americans doing great things.
Buy your tickets now and tell them Brian sent you, only from WHIO, AM 1290 and 95.7 FM. Dayton's weather, traffic, and Fox News station.
If news breaks, we break in anytime. Now, back to America's most powerful talk lineup. This is WHIO.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. It's Brian Kilmeade.
When you're negotiating with someone and they're not paying attention and they're disagreeing, the president, who's the best deal maker ever to sit in that chair, is going to say, here's my response. And then all of a sudden, shockingly, they respond.
That is Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary, defending Trump's tariffs. And by the way, the market is up right now, 152 points on good news when it comes to inflation. The president making some remarks right now, and we'll get you some of that. Let's bring in Rich Lowry, National Review. Rich, welcome back. So this tariff stuff is really taking a toll on the market. You write that we should not be so focused on Canada. Why do you think we're making a mistake there?
I just don't think Canada's not China, right? It's not a national security threat. It's not Mexico. There aren't huge quantities of fentanyl and people coming over the border. Well, we have fewer people, thank goodness. And these protectionist gripes that the president has expressed are totally legitimate: dairy, lumber, banking. But these are long-running concerns that could easily be renegotiated when the USMCA is up next year for review. So there's no reason to be threatening to nuke Canada, and it's not good for Canada, but it's also not good for us. You know, I think the sheer uncertainty about the on again, off again, enormous tariffs. I mean, these are kind of be Smoot-Hawley level tariffs. They take us far beyond what the pre-NAFTA and pre-Reagan agreement in the 1980s were. It's hurting us too. So I would just work this out like we're friends, the way we are, and focus on something else.
Here's what Kevin O'Leary, Canadian living in America, said. Cut 9.
We're in a little bit of a tiff, Jesse.
Is that what they call it?
A little poo-poo right now?
A little poo-poo?
Because there's an election going on in Canada.
Right.
You got to give them another 60 days to choose a new leader. And the guy will have the same mandate that Trump has, a majority mandate for 4 years. And then let's start negotiating a union of the economy. He's not, can't sell. Listen, what really happened was Trudeau really, for lack of better words, excuse my French, pissed Trump off. Mm-hmm. He's gone. He got whacked on Sunday. Let's focus on the next 60 days. Let Canada elect a new leader, and let's cut a deal.
Your thoughts about that? He's pretty accurate.
Well said. Yeah, well said. Who's not annoyed by Justin Trudeau, but he is on his way out. And what we don't want to do is make it harder for Pierre Poilievre. I'm terrible with my French, so I'm probably mispronouncing it.
The conservative.
I just call him Pierre. Yeah, he's the conservative alternative, but he's a conservative populist. He's very talented. He's going to be much more a Trump guy than Justin Trudeau was. Not that that's saying much, but I think actually Trump will like him. And yeah, cut a deal. And I think, things like an economic union, I'm not sure whether I go all the way there, but there's the kind of things that could be up for discussion. Should we have a common tariff policy against the rest of the world to kind of ring fence U.S. and Canada together? All that's worth discussing. But at the moment, we're making it harder for Pierre to get elected and driving the Canadians insane. I mean, they're talking, Brian, about how they need a European nuclear guarantee against the United States. It's just they're a little deranged at the moment.
Right. Between that and what's going on with the Gaza situation and Adam Bowler talking to Hamas, and then you have in the Ukraine situation, now it seems that Ukraine has come to the table on what a ceasefire would look like. And now it's up to Russia to come across, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what he's trying to do, and I think it's pretty clear, he wants to painfully turn the ship around. He wants to bring manufacturing back to our country. He wants to level all tariffs. He wants to bring some of that revenue in to decrease taxes and have that revenue from tariffs replace the revenue that would be with higher taxes. And with America with more money in their pocket, might be able to afford more expensive products. But more than that, they would be wealthier. So he's trying to turn the focus of the economy around, and with Doge working, try to balance the budget and no longer be growing the deficit, at least get it in the right direction.
Yeah, so that's the theory. And I think, at the margins, if you have higher tariffs, you're going to have more manufacturing. The question is whether that's an economical way to get more manufacturing. The research tends to say you have all these costs spread out among everyone that are paying for those increased manufacturing jobs in a way that doesn't make sense. So if for me, I would focus, China is a national security issue, so that's different. But otherwise, I'd just be focusing on how do we make our environment here at home as inviting to manufacturers as possible.
Which he's doing, which is why we're getting some of it back.
Like deregulation and a favorable tax policy, low energy costs, all that's great. It doesn't cost anyone else in the country anything. And then on Doge, I just don't think Doge isn't going to balance the budget. It might make the federal government more efficient and the workforce smaller, and all that's great. But the big numbers you would need to get to balance the budget are defense and especially all the entitlements, which Trump doesn't want to touch for political reasons. So we're not going to balance the budget.
So Medicare, Medicaid, I think that Doge can do a lot of progress. Not touching payouts, but touching getting rid of abuse and making the system leaner, making less people more automated, using AI, and making sure that people getting benefits are actually eligible for it. One thing but Joe Biden did subtly that was devastating, according to reports, is that on Medicaid, there's really no follow-up to make sure that people are actually who they say they are, to make sure that there's make sure that people getting payments are actually eligible to get payments. And then right now there's a review every 3 years. If you just bring that review every 6 months, that would put pressure on the system. Number two is when it comes to Social Security, don't touch people's payouts. But for people who make over $162,000, once you hit the threshold of Social Security, which could be the first 6 months of the year, you're not taking any more money out. We have to decide to take, for high earners, they're not going to feel it, take additional security, Social Security out of the people's paycheck in order to make it solvent for the next 10 years. I don't know many people who are multimillionaires who will say, why is it that, they're still taking Social Security out after a year? I mean, they're not going to feel the $100 or $200. I mean, that would balance it out almost right away. Also, the rich people that don't want Social Security, like Ken Langone, says, I cannot stop my checks from coming to me. Yeah. He founded Home Depot. He's a multi-billionaire. And he says, they said, well, you could do it with what you want. Well, that's not going to help balance the budget. You got to stop mailing it to people that don't want it.
Yeah, totally agree with all that. The first, totally within Doge's ambit, would be great if it could do it. The latter idea, which I agree with too, and I think is an excellent one, would require Congress to do something. And then you just get into politics. As soon as you touch any Social Security, the Democrats are like, see, we told you they're ending Social Security, and Republicans have never won that debate before. Maybe this would be different, but so far there's not any appetite for it on either in the White House or on Capitol.
Well, we know how bad, we know how much Democrats hate billionaires unless they need donations. So if you say, I'm going to tell the millionaires they're going to have to pay for the entire year, well, the threshold's now $300,000. I can't see them being upset by it. It's usually Republicans who would be upset by it. Yeah. Let's just get into that debate later. I want to talk about what you see happening with Russia and Ukraine, all your international experience, knowledge, and contacts. It looks like Zelensky says, here's the framework for a ceasefire. They're still bombing each other at this moment. Let's start cleaning out the skies, then keep the waterways, and then we'll talk about different ways to ratchet down and have confidence-building measures. What do you think Russia's response to Jeddah is going to be?
Well, that's the big question, right? So I always thought this was a natural play for Ukraine, Brian. Zelensky get on Trump's good side, which he did not manage to do. We talked about that Oval Office meeting, but then make it clear that you're the side that wants peace and you're the side that's more reasonable, and put the ball in Russia's court. Now the ball is in Russia's court, and the question is Russia just going to take it, or are they going to say, no, we're only going to take this if we get the guarantees right now? We won't even do a ceasefire unless we get guarantees that Ukraine is not in NATO, and then we'll have to see from there. But so far, Russia, although Trump has said, I know they want peace and they want a deal, there hasn't been a public indication of it.
Here is Dan Hoffman, the former Russian CIA station chief. And by the way, Peskov rolled in. He had a statement that said, don't get ahead of ourselves when it comes to ceasefire. So here's Dan Hoffman, cut 23.
Vladimir Putin wants to at least annex 4 provinces where fighting is ongoing. Russia doesn't have full control of those. He's going to want to limit any foreign troops that are deployed to Ukraine after a settlement to this war. And he doesn't want Ukraine to join NATO. Those are all parts of a post-conflict deal. And Ukraine, of course, wants security guarantees. So the question for Russia is, do they want to pause in the fighting? Would they agree to a ceasefire? If past is prologue, they won't. They've broken ceasefires, most recently in 2019. But this time might be different. Vladimir Putin has really suffered hundreds of thousands of casualties to his forces, and they too may need a break.
So we are great at not knowing what's going on in Russia, hence the Cold War. So we really don't know. People were doubting that they were going to do this invasion. So your thoughts about what Russia will do?
I don't know. I think, though, the key threat we're going to have to make at some point to get this process moving on the Russian side is not to say we're going to do sanctions, because we've already done a lot. I'm not really clear how much more we can sanction them. And then we're going to do tariffs. We have no trade with Russia. It's going to be, you know what? Ukraine's getting more weapons and with fewer limits than ever. And maybe that would have an effect. But if I were Putin, I'd be worried that that's going to be Trump's reaction. So I might be, as that expert was suggesting, I might be a little more reasonable than I have been in the past.
Here's what Marco Rubio said, cut 22.
Today, we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interests, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation. We'll take this offer now to the Russians, and we hope that they'll say yes to peace. The ball is now in their court.
So Steve Witkoff's going to go over there, not the Secretary of State. Do you find that different?
Yeah, I think Marco is in a very unusual situation because there are all these special envoys and czars and people that he didn't necessarily want in his own State Department. So he's a little bit of a precarious situation. But this is what Trump likes. He likes a lot of different players bouncing off of each other, and we'll see. Witkoff's good at this stuff.
Yeah. Lastly, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, announced that they got it across the finish line, a continuing resolution that would fund the government until September, cut 27.
Well, this was a big vote on the House floor. The Republicans stood together, and we had one Democrat vote with us to do the right thing, and that is to fund the government. This was a clean CR. It freezes funding. It's a responsible thing to do. And we're ensuring that troops continue to get their paychecks and TSA agents continue to do their work and be paid, and essential workers on the border and elsewhere are doing their jobs.
So he's very happy. Now all the pressure's on the Senate. How does that play out?
They may say that this bill has some plus-ups for defense and reductions in discretionary spending. You might have Senate Democrats say, no, we just need it to be at current levels and keep that, and then we'll go along with it. But I just think they will go along with it one way or the other eventually, the Senate Democrats, because I don't think you can say, oh, it's so terrible what Elon Musk is doing, throwing people out of work and putting them in an uncertain situation, and then say, oh, by the way, we're shutting down the government. So I think they'll end up going along.
Well, can you explain to me how it works? You might not know either, so don't feel bad if you don't, but you seem to know everything. The way I understand it, it's going to be in front of the Senate, and you need 60 votes to pass it. And obviously, if you get 53 votes, Rand Paul, I'm not sure what he's doing, 52, 53 votes, and you don't get to 60, obviously the Democrats are the one who shut down the government. Right. But I understand it's just for cloture. Then you need a simple majority to pass it.
I don't know. I don't know. That would kind of surprise me. I guess they would need just a simple majority, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the way I understand it, at one point, whether it's for cloture or for passage, you need 60 votes. So who's going to go along with it? Senator Kelly said, hey, you know what, I'm still up in the air. Fetterman seems to be a logical guy. That's not enough, Warner, though. Yeah, I mean, would Warner do that?
Yeah, I think the argument Democrats will make if there's a shutdown is like, well, look, Republicans have unified control of Washington. This is their job. But they can't do it without some Democratic votes. And that's why at the end of the day, I think they'll go along, even if there's some, this has happened a lot, 12-hour shutdown, on Saturday. It doesn't really mean a lot.
So prediction from you. After this, Speaker Johnson just told us on Fox and Friends that he said, we're going to do regular order. We're going to ask all 12 budget committees to come up with their budget for their unit, and they're going to put it forward, wrap it into one bill, and then send it over. And I said, are you going to get the Senate? He goes, yes. And I go, why haven't you done that in the past? And he said, well, our president would never even get us the president never gave us a framework for a budget. Now we got Trump's going to give us a budget in April. And then we'll work off that, and we'll get it done by September. And that, to me, would stop the Thomas Masseys and the Chip Roys from saying, I'll never pass it. I want things to go regular order. They'll get to debate in the budget in committee. Your thoughts about that actually happening?
Well, I mean, it would be fantastic, right, if that actually happened. I'd be skeptical just based on past experience. That's proved really, really hard for Congress to do its job that way. I will say I think the reconciliation bill will get through one way or the other because, one, Mike Johnson, you got to give him credit. I think he's pretty good at this. But, two, he just has the backstop of Trump. And besides Thomas Massey, I think Trump can make anyone jump off any ledge at the moment.
Go get him. Rich Larry, thanks so much. Pick up the National Review. 1-866-408-7669. I gave you a lot. I know you have a lot to say, whether it's Ukraine, what's happening with the president, with the market, which I still say it looks like the market is still up on these good news when it comes to inflation. You listen to the Brian Kilmeade Show.
Politics, current events, and news that affects you. Brian's got a lot more to say. Stay with Brian Kilmeade.
This is WHIO's Brian Kilmeade. Dayton's News and Talk is WHIO.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
A lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But what if you could get both? Why not? Especially when it comes to health care, and that is MediShare. You get both. Many families save $500 a month with MediShare, and that's huge. But it's also true that people wind up way more satisfied, too. And we know this from research of members. There's a lot they like about MediShare, but especially they love being part of something they believe in. And MediShare works, too. It has for more than 30 years. There are hundreds of thousands of members who love having telehealth if they need it. They love the huge PPO network. So, yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or you're part of the gig economy or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price in 2 minutes. Here's the number. Call 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE. 855-51-BIBLE.
Greg is a real Prevagen user, and this is his story.
Hi, I'm Greg. I'm not an actor. I'm just a regular person. 8 years ago, I just didn't feel like I was on my game. I started taking Prevagen, and I want people to know that Prevagen has worked for me. Give it a try. I want it to help you just like it has helped me.
Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Testimonialist was compensated for their time.
I had the worst dream last night. You were in a car crash, and the kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, hon.
My brother got life insurance from Ethos, and it only took 10 minutes. And he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit ethos.com/news. That's ethos.com/news.
Sample rate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. Billed monthly. Now from the WHIO News Center, here are the three big things you need to know. One person hurt after a multi-car crash in Clark County this morning. One person taken to the hospital after a large police investigation near a Dayton park. And more of President Trump's tariffs are going into effect. Full details on these stories and more. Our next scheduled newscast is at 10 o'clock. I'm Jake Magnotta, WHIO Continuing News.
Whatever the weather outside, stay comfortable inside with Tanner Heating and Air Conditioning, where quality and comfort matter the most. Our cost-effective systems for your home or office and planned service will save you some bucks. Bucks. That's right, Sarah bucks. That will keep your wallet happy. Tanner Heating and Air Conditioning, a reliable local family-owned company that always produces great results. This is Sarah Tanner. Call 299-2500 or go to tannerhvac.com to schedule today. Tanner Heating and Air Conditioning, a name you can trust.
Are you tired of dealing with the same health problems like headaches and back pain and still only utilizing a Band-Aid to cover up the symptoms? Then tune into Living the Full Life, where Dr. Juan explains how to get to the root cause of the problem and fix it. Saturdays from 9 to 10 a.m. on WHIO Radio.
Specialty Motorworks in West Carrollton offers quality, affordable import car repair. Not everyone has the knowledge, skills, and tools to work on foreign cars. We have 40 years of import repair experience. Trust your car to Specialty Motorworks on Springboro Pike in West Carrollton. Tune in to WHIO Radio for all your live UD Flyer basketball, sponsored in part by Premier Health. Premier Health is proud to be the official healthcare provider for UD Athletics. Learn more at premierhealth.com/UD.
This is a Consumer Warrior Clark Howard Minute.
If you're in college, or let's say you have a kid who's in college or going soon, I want to tell you the hottest thing right now is to go in a college program where you work, not just wherever, but you work in jobs that are in the field of what you're studying. And it lets you stand above the crowd. This is the number one way for someone to take a college degree and be successful with it after graduating from college. College is so expensive, it's better actually to stretch college to get that degree to 5 or 6 years working while in school, so that when you graduate, you not only have the credential, but you also have experience in the field you want to work in.
Clark is WHIO's Consumer Warrior, and you can hear him during Miami Valley's Morning News on WHIO.
20 plus degrees above normal. I'm Storm Center 7 meteorologist Brittany Ritz.
Degrees in Dayton at 9:55 on 1290 and 95.7 WHIO.
If you're interested in it, Brian's talking about it. You're with Brian Kilmeade.
If there's one way that Donald Trump could reset the global image of him, it's by being tough on Vladimir Putin. Something that many of us have wondered if he could ever do. If he does it, if he says, you have to do this, or, we are going to take increasing steps to compel you to the table, that would be interesting.
And that is Dave Ignatius, very respected internationally, not the biggest Trump fan. I'm a fan of his, but you just got to know that when you're listening to him. But he's 100% right. I said, let's call his bluff. Call President Putin's bluff. So he says, yeah, Ukraine is the problem. Ancestrally, they belong to us. There is no country of Ukraine. They should have elections. Whatever farcical statements he makes. But all the pressure was on Ukraine to see if you could get your ally to stop fighting. And what are the circumstances that would do? Well, it's done. They outlined it. It's pretty specific. You're not talking about what it's going to take for a permanent peace, but to get a ceasefire. And as was just texted over to me, as written up by Matt Chance after an interview with Marco Rubio, the Kremlin so far is tight-lipped, but Steve Witkoff is going to be going over there with this deal. They've had a chance to read it. They've been tight-lipped about it so far, about what they're going to do. But they know now the pressure's on them. And if they look unreasonable and makes Trump look bad, you'll find out right away. And Dave, you'll get your answer. And I know the answer. If he starts saying I'm not stopping and I'm demanding elections and we want half the country, you can keep Kyiv and Lviv and that'll be about it. If you say things that are irrational, Trump's not going to give in because you're making him look, not only is this a bad deal, but you're also making him look bad in front of his allies and his enemies, because we got to do the same deal with, got rid of the Houthi rebels. You got to come down on Iran. Looming in the background is North Korea. And then there's meetings in April with China. And China says 2027 we're taking Taiwan, maybe before. A lot of big decisions. And perception is everything. But if Putin does come across and says, yeah, I'll take it, take a ceasefire, and then they start negotiating, the big thing will be about security guarantees. Because Putin does stop fighting, but he reloads. And as you see, he's got a terrible fighting force, terrible army. But he's going to learn from that. Brian Kilmeade Show.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? Yikes. When it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Switch to Consumer Cellular and get the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Plans start at just $20 a month, and that's not a short-term promo. But don't just take our word for it. Here's Jackie and Veronica, real customers.
I didn't know that I could get something for a lot less money that was actually better than who I was with before.
Anytime anybody complains about their cell phone bill, we say, you've got to check out Consumer Cellular.
Our U.S.-based experts will get you switched and saving in about 20 minutes. Just call or click to see how much you can save today. Because when it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit ConsumerCellular.com. That's 1-888-FREEDOM or ConsumerCellular.com today. Real people pay to share their opinions in this ad. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing.
I'm Parker Testa with the University of Dayton Sports Update. The Dayton Flyers beat VCU 75-67 in their final regular season game Friday night. Javon Bennett led the Flyers in points.
Back to Bennett for 3. It's good.
Bennett posted a Dayton career-high 22. Also having a night was Malachi Smith.
Malachi for 3. Got it!
Smith notched 13 points. Enoch Cheeks was also in double figures.
It's Cheeks and a monster dunk!
Cheeks dropped 12 points. Coach Grant after the win.
Proud of our guys because we did our part. We took care of what we needed to take care of in these 2 games, and now it's about trying to get prepared and understanding the lessons from the regular season and then putting ourselves in position to go try to win a championship in D.C.
Next time out, Dayton plays in the Atlantic 10 quarterfinals Friday night. Pregame begins at 6:30. Larry Hansgen has the call at 7:30 here on the home of the Flyers. I'm Parker Testa with your University of Dayton Sports Update on 1290 and 95.7 WHIO.
Live from the WHIO News Center, this is Miami Valley's News at 10. Our top story, more tariffs go into effect today.
Spring is here. Well, not really. I'm Storm Center 7 meteorologist Britley Ritz. It sure feels like it, but there's a cold front on the way to bring us back to reality.
Take a look at 75, 76, 75. All looking good. I'm Chris Hartley, WHIO Triple Team Traffic.
These stories and more coming up. I'm Jake Magnotta. WHIO News Time is exactly 10 o'clock.
WHIO, Dayton Springfield. Celebrating our 90th year as the Miami Valley's leading news station. Weather, traffic, and breaking news starts now.
In our top story, more of President Trump's tariffs are going into effect.
The tariffs on all steel and aluminum products go into effect today. It's a 25% tariff or tax the Trump administration says will create more jobs at home. The European Union has announced retaliatory measures. President Trump says these tariffs are just the beginning and could increase.
It's Fox's Lucas Tomlinson reporting. WHIO News Time, 10:01, 41 degrees in Dayton. One person is hurt after a multi-car crash in Clark County this morning. It happened just before 7 o'clock on East National Road near I-70. We're working to learn if anyone else was hurt and how this crash happened. In Dayton, one person is taken to the hospital, but there are still a lot of questions about what happened after a large police investigation near a local park yesterday afternoon.
Dayton police used crime scene tape to block off parts of North Garland Avenue near East 2nd Street. The scene was just feet from Washington Park.
That report from News Center 7's Taylor Robertson. And new information on a private plane crash in Pennsylvania over the weekend.
One of the people who survived the crash Sunday is a Cedarville University student. Judah White is a sophomore from Manheim, Pennsylvania, who was traveling back to campus after spring break.
It's WHIO's Ron Otto reporting. All 4 people on the plane were treated for minor injuries, and the FAA considers the crash an accident. Well, multiple people hurt after a one-car crash in Miami County overnight. This happened around 2:15 on Crane Road in Monroe Township. A sheriff deputy told us that 6 people were in the car. 4 of them were hurt, including a woman who was ejected. Everyone is expected to be okay, and alcohol may have played a part in the crash.
This is WHIO Continuing News.
Some Clark County residents are under a boil advisory after a water main break. The village of South Charleston said this includes anyone who lives north of John Street. On Facebook, the village said it's waiting on lab results before it can lift the advisory. WHIO News Time is 10:03. The Storm Center 7 forecast is next.
This is the Miami Valley's home for Fox News, the most powerful name in news. WHI. This is a Consumer Warrior Clark Howard Minute.
So much conversation about crypto. I'm asked a lot about it. A lot of people get upset with me that I'm so cautious about you being involved with crypto. And it is still a Wild West kind of thing. You may have heard, if you're into crypto, that Bybit got hit by hackers and $1.5 billion of its customers' money that was stored with Bybit is now lost in space. There are rumors that the money was stolen by North Korean hackers. Who knows exactly where that money's gone? The problem is, for you as a consumer, you have money on a crypto exchange, you feel like it's going to be safe. It's not necessarily safe from a hacker. And there's no FDIC insurance.
Clark is WHIO's Consumer Warrior, and you can hear him during Miami Valley's Morning News on WHIO.
For This Week in History, I'm Ron Otto. March 9th, 1959, Barbie makes her debut at the American Toy Fair in New York and will go on to sell over 1 billion units worldwide. March 10th, 1940, Chuck Norris is born in Ryan, Oklahoma.
Because that's where the Rangers gonna be.
March 10th, 1876, Alexander Graham Bell tells his assistant Thomas Watson, "Come here, I want to see you," through his new invention, the telephone. March 15th, 44 BC, the Ides of March. Julius Caesar is stabbed to death by Brutus, Cassius, and several other senators in Rome.
It's too...
Coming to Dayton at the Victoria Theater, Saturday, June 21st. Buy your tickets now at DaytonLive.org. Part of the WHIO 90th anniversary celebration. AM 1290 and 95.7 FM. Dayton's weather, traffic, and Fox News station.
WHIO News Time, 10:05. Now at the Miami Valley's most accurate and dependable forecast, your Storm Center 7 meteorologist, Brittany Ritz.
70 today, lots of sunshine, a bit breezy. 47 overnight and into tomorrow morning. 71 tomorrow afternoon, looking at the sunshine and a few clouds building late afternoon and into the evening with a stalled boundary. We may have a stray shower. Going into Friday, we will be dry. We'll call it partly cloudy and very warm, a high of 75. We'll work our way to 71 on Saturday with the chance of rain and a few thunderstorms. That carries on into Sunday, and a few storms may be strong. I'm Storm Center 7 meteorologist Brittany Ritz for Dayton Severe Weather Station 1290 and 95.7 WHIO.
Latest scan of the Doppler 7 radar is clear. It's 45 in Xenia, 45 degrees in downtown Dayton. Our next scheduled news in less than 15 minutes and immediately when it breaks. I'm Jake Magnotta on 1290 and 95.7 WHIO. Dayton's News and Talk. Depend on it.
If news breaks, we break in anytime. Now, back to America's most powerful talk lineup. This is WHIO.
From the Fox News radio studios in Midtown Manhattan, giving you opinions and facts with a positive outlook. It's Brian Kilmeade.
All right, from 48th and 6th in Manhattan, Brian Kilmeade Show coming your way. Yes, this is the site just a few blocks away where Columbia University students and their crazy Hamas Palestinian supporters, anti-Semitic activists, were storming down, beating up cops, trying to break through, cause havoc in a tribute to the soon-to-be deported, I hope, fingers crossed, graduate student who was detained for violating conditions of his green card and pledging allegiance to Hamas. And it looks like the Secretary of State found out that he is indeed a terror threat and said, we're going to revoke the green card. A judge has stepped in. Today, we will find out what that judge says. And if not, they're going to work it right up the ladder. And I believe this is going to be the beginning of a massive deportation of these ungrateful terrorist students who came here just to create havoc and forward their agenda, seemingly financed by Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and those terrorist groups themselves. This hour, we're going to be joined by Susan Crabtree, co-author of Fool's Gold, the radicals, con artists, and traitors who killed the California dream and now threaten us all. And after that, another California kid, Andrew Gruhl, chef and restaurant owner. So let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
Today, we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable. We'll take this offer now to the Russians. The ball's now in their court.
Yep, let's call their bluff. Ukraine outlines ceasefire terms, signs mineral deal imminent, gets America weapons flowing again, satellite and intelligence flowing too. Trump and Putin scheduled to speak this week.
Number 2.
Number 1, it's a great product, as good as it gets. And number 2, because this man has devoted his energy and his life to doing this. And I think he's been treated very unfairly by a very small group of people.
That is President Trump talking about Elon Musk in the crosshairs, not backing down despite Tesla, charging stations, showrooms, and the cars themselves like Cybertrucks being targeted by people that do not like Trump or Musk.
Number 1.
What President Trump is doing is insane. It shows there are no bounds around President Trump. And the other thing that's not talked about is what's going on within the administration in terms of how they're treating the Constitution and laws. I think all of that is bad for the attraction of capital.
Right. Steve Leisman of CNBC upset Donald Trump. My sense, never liked him, never voted for him. Keep an eye on the big picture. Trump economics team goal is to bring manufacturing and jobs back to America, lower income tax, and then make stuff here. Wild losses on Wall Street, but not today. They like the inflation report. So let's talk about what's happening in California. No, not that the governor's got a new podcast, and not just that the mayor was in Ghana when the city was burning to the ground and she lied about it and knew about it. That it's been a mess. And that is something that got into the came across the desk of Susan Crabtree, who co-authored the book Fool's Gold, the radicals, con artists, and traitors who killed the California dream and now threaten us all. Susan, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Brian.
Susan, when did you realize there was a plot that needed to be unwound here?
Well, I spent 23 years in Washington, D.C., cutting my teeth covering Congress and the White House during the Obama years. And in 2017, I came back to my native California, loved the state, grew up here in the 80s and 90s. And it was just everything that people thought it was. We were very proud of our state, a land of opportunity, just a big political balance. It was more purple back then, and certain areas were red. And now when I came back, it was very, very difficult to make it here. If you are in middle class or upper middle class, you have to be a moneyed elite because so many things are mismanaged and so many things are so expensive. I mean, it is like the California dream has become a fool's errand in our estimation. And it's sort of like a reverse gold rush. Everybody's leaving the state because they can't afford to be here. We have the highest taxes, highest utility rates, highest
But it's all self-inflicted, right, Susan? Is that what you found out? It's not like, well, those poor guys don't have enough water. No, this is self-inflicted because they decided that the homeless should take over every city. They decided that green energy is the future. They decided to make oil and gas persona non grata. And what happens is they have no mass transportation, and they decide to be their political correctness has helped cave in the country.
That's absolutely correct. And we did a complete deep dive. It's even worse than that. We believe, and we've found evidence, it's right there, it was in public documents, that not only is Newsom, you're very familiar with the fact that he cleaned up, he was able to clean up the homelessness in San Francisco, make it a shining city. When President Xi came to visit in the fall of 2023, but he can't do that, when for our own citizens. We found we did a deep dive into Gavin Newsom's ties to the CCP, and what we found is that when he was mayor, he created this nonprofit called China SF to recruit Chinese business and investment into the Bay Area. And it streamlined a path for Chinese criminals and CCP officials to infiltrate California and buy up real estate, bribe government officials, pilfer intellectual property from American companies. And so he cares more about sort of the Chinese, his ties to the Chinese. A lot of Chinese voters in San Francisco helped boost his early career. And all of this, it's been nobody has even scratched the surface of what this involves. So it was all underwritten by Huawei, which, as you know, is not only banned in the United States for its surveillance of the Uyghurs and its spying capabilities, but it's banned by the United Nations as well. So this China-SF joint venture with CCP cronies, it just exposes this Gavin Newsom's cozy relationship with China. And he was trying to get his wine into China at the same time. We saw that he trademarked two of his best wines so that they could be released in China. And so we wonder what the motivation for all of this is. We found documents showing that he was pouring his wine at this building, this very shishi restaurant housed in a building owned by Vincent Lowe. Guess who Vincent Lowe was? A partner with China SF. So we wonder, there's also this, he opened up for the land grabs. Interestingly enough, in 2022, the Democratic supermajority, because as you know, it's a one-party state, they passed a bill saying no more foreign ownership of California's agricultural land. But guess what? Gavin Newsom vetoed that bill, even though it was unanimously passed by Democratic supermajority.
So this is he's got an agenda. He's bought and sold. We saw him over there already, right? 2 years ago.
Yes, he had these glamour shots that he was taking on the Great Wall with his sunglasses on and his shirt open, and he he paid a photographer with taxpayer dollars to accompany him on that trip. $100,000 in taxpayer dollars a year that pays for that photographer to take these glamour shots, and the shots with him shaking hands with President Xi and rolling around with EV in electric vehicles that are Chinese owned. He went to a Chinese electric vehicle company that actually is the same company that sponsored some of the COVID PPE that he got from China, which is a completely bad deal that he tried to keep secret from the California citizens. But yeah, so he's got all these ties to China. And as you know, I work with this book with Peter Schweizer's group and my co-authors, Jed McFadden, his top researcher, and they just do an excellent job of delving into American politicians' ties to China. And this one was just, we couldn't believe it. Nobody is doing this work in the legacy media in California.
It's amazing, too, is that now everything came to root when you saw how inept Karen Bass was. And then you have Gavin Newsom come down there and said, I want to find out what happened, why the water wasn't there, why we don't have enough firefighters, why everything burned to the ground, why this state doesn't have anybody insurers, any carriers. This is all self-inflicted. They had so many regulations that prevented them from raising rates to a place where they can actually have a business. They pulled out of the state, leaving very few carriers. Meanwhile, the state now and the federal government is expected to pay to rebuild these homes. And you chronicle that all in the Fool's Gold, but this is relatively new. This is taken from the newspapers. And Governor Gavin Newsom, at this time of strife, where they still wrestle with trying to rebuild their homes and get permits, he decides to start a podcast where he's talking to different conservatives. Here's his conversation with Michael Savage. They're debating California taxes in Florida. It's cut 10.
Gavin, I pay 16% in state taxes.
You need a better accountant because it's 13.3%.
But there's a millionaire's tax on top of it.
Well,
and I'm 83 years old and I still work. I have another home in Florida.
Yeah.
I don't live there. Right. I prefer where I live. I've gotten used to the fog, to the seagulls, to the cormorants. I know all the birds of the bay. I'm an avid boater. But there's a point at which I will leave this state, and that will be taxation without representation. I can go to Florida and pay no state tax.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is we have the highest tax rate, but not the highest taxes in America.
Who has a higher state tax?
Tax rate. Florida. They tax their low-wage workers more than we tax our high-wage
Gavin,
workers.
I shouldn't be punished for succeeding.
But I think it's important, just in California, the vast majority of middle-class taxpayers pay less than they do in California, middle class, than they do in states like Texas.
Well,
it's a question of who you're for. We have the highest.
How much? Again, to what level do they pay low?
Average to slightly above average tax state.
That's not true. And he'll pull out Austin over in Texas and say that's Texas.
It's unbelievable to me when you talk about the wildfires. The insurance companies are bolting the state, and they have been for years. But guess what? Gavin Newsom bailed out utility responsible for the most wildfires in the state and the deadliest after collecting $700,000. Actually, he and his wife collected it from PG&E. And what people don't understand is that they see him, trying to investigate all these things about the wildfires, acting like he cares. Now, what you need to know about Gavin Newsom is it's just all performative. Nothing is performative.
Nothing's real. And what about Kamala Harris? What should we know about her?
Well, we have so much about Kamala Harris in the book. We had to cut so much of it when she lost the election. But here she is trying to run for governor again, signaling that she is. And it's definitely scaring a lot of the citizens of California. What we found, one of the most outrageous things we found is she likes to talk about how she is so close and advocates for the LGBTQ plus community. But we found an instance in which there was a convicted pedophile who was actually convicted of it it's just a really disgusting case. And he broke his parole, this individual, and I talked to the parole officer who rearrested him, and there was a clear confession from this individual going into the San Francisco gay community and some closeted gays, he told the officer, to spread HIV because he was HIV positive, to spread AIDS. And this parole officer asked Kamala Harris to prosecute this guy and say, he's a convicted pedophile. He's doing this in your city. She was district attorney at the time, and her office refused to do so. That's just the tip of the iceberg. We found so many deeply concerning things. You have to buy the book to really get into.
How about a couple of things on Nancy Pelosi?
Well, Nancy Pelosi, we didn't spend as much time on her because she's an old guard, but we do talk about all of her ties and how she helped Gavin Newsom come up in the world because, she is his aunt by marriage. And her husband, Paul Pelosi's father, actually did a whole business deal in Lake Tahoe for Squaw Valley. Now it's called, you can't call it Squaw Valley now, it's Tahoe Palisades, I believe it is. But she did a whole deal with Gavin Newsom's grandfather. This is the kind of moneyed and political ties because he didn't earn anything himself. Everything about Gavin Newsom has been handed to him on a silver platter.
Adam Schiff,
we talk about his ties to the Armenian gangsters and mobsters. In Los Angeles, Armenians are one of the top political contingencies that you have to cater to. And Adam Schiff has gone out of his way to help stand up some of their political action committees. And then they were found guilty of embezzling some of the money from those political action committees. And then a lot of them have gone to jail. And Adam Schiff has direct ties to those individuals.
Susan Crabtree, our guest. And Susan, the state is overrun by illegal immigrants. It's overrun by homelessness. It is extremely high taxed. Their natural resources have not been utilized. When they do get rains, they have no way to retain them. There's been nothing done to bolster up their infrastructure, and crime is run rampant. These are all self-inflicted things that they have done through their policies, and there's no Republican to push back. Have we gotten to a breaking point for the average Californian?
Well, I like to say that Californians have to learn the hard way. There's been a lot of immigration into California, and the policies that were flourishing in the 60s, the sort of what Miranda Devine, who has endorsed the book, it's called the woke mind virus, has bubbled up from the 60s, coming from in San Francisco, then down throughout the whole state. So now, but there are some signs, because you had Exhibit A, the wildfires. Los Angeles, I think, is starting to change. And last year, because of the crime wave across the state, Proposition 36 that reversed the soft on crime policies that led to all the smash and grabs, that passed, and both San Francisco and Los Angeles kicked out their prosecutors. One of them, George Gascon, who wrote that week on crime law that allowed the felonies to go to misdemeanors, and if you didn't steal more than $950. So there was a resounding victory across the state for Proposition 36. So it is
some signs.
Things are changing.
Yes, hopefully.
There's some rightward shifting, but we need a tectonic shift. In my estimation.
I would just love to see Gavin Newsom's career just close out. Let him do podcasts. He should not be leading anything. Susan Crabtree, thanks so much. Pick up Fool's Gold. Thanks so much, Susan.
I really appreciate your interest in this.
Absolutely.
It's really critical for California and the rest of the country.
And a lot of times they say it happens in California first and then it spreads to the country. Let's hope that's not the case. Don't move. Back in a minute.
It's Brian Kilmeade.
This is WHIO Sean Hannity, Dayton's News and Talk, WHIO.
Emergencies strike at any time without warning. When they do, food disappears fast. That's why prepared Americans trust My Patriot Supply, the leader in long-term emergency food storage, to protect their families. For a limited time, order their best-selling 4-week emergency food supply and get 4 free 72-hour food kits. That's 12 extra days of food at no extra cost. That's nearly 2 weeks of extra food, free to keep your family secure. Plus, free shipping. Order by 3 p.m. for same-day shipping. All kits deliver 2,000 calories per day of easy-to-prepare meals with a shelf life up to 25 years. These kits that have been rated 4.8 out of 5 stars by tens of thousands of folks like you. When the next crisis hits, you'll be ready. Stock up now at MyPatriotSupply.com before this deal disappears. Go to MyPatriotSupply.com for your 4-week emergency food supply and 4 free extra food kits. MyPatriotSupply.com.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
You know, a lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But what if you could get both? Why not? Especially when it comes to health care, and that is MediShare. You get both. Many families save $500 a month with MediShare, and that's huge. But it's also true that people wind up way more satisfied, too. And we know this from research of members. There's a lot they like about MediShare, but especially they love being part of something they believe in. And MediShare works, too. It has for more than 30 years. There are hundreds of thousands of members who love having telehealth if they need it. They love the huge PPO network. So, yeah, really, you could save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or you're part of the gig economy or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price in 2 minutes. Here's the number. Call 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE. 855-51-BIBLE.
Now for the WHIO News Center, here are the 3 big things you need to know. Multiple people are hurt in a crash in Miami County overnight. The House passing a bill to fund the government for several months and avoid a partial shutdown. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio says they will now go to the Russians with a ceasefire proposal in Ukraine. Full details on these stories and more. Our next scheduled newscast is at 10:30. I'm Jake Magnotta, WHIO Continuing News.
The 50,000-watt giant of Miami Valley Radio. From Lima to Kentucky, Columbus to Indianapolis. The station that cares about every town in between. We love this region as much as you do. Covering weather, traffic, and news is still our #1 priority. Nothing is more important as keeping radio local, in touch with the community, and relevant to you and your family. Welcome to the legendary 1290 and 95.7 WHIO. Depend on it. This is a Consumer Warrior Clark Howard Minute.
Okay, there's a weird thing I got to share with you. You know how when you pull a credit card out of your wallet, it'll have a number on it. Well, do you know that next time you get a renewal of your card, it may not have any numbers on it at all? And the reason is that credit card companies are trying to stamp out so much fraud. And there are now electronically embedded numbers inside a card, and that's enough. On your statement, stuff you have from your credit card company will have your actual number available to you, but more and more you're going to find that the number you're going to be using will be tokenized, kind of like what happens if you use Apple Pay or Google Wallet, where it generates a randomized number every time you use that particular card. That's the system we're going to for all credit card transactions.
Clark is WHIO's Consumer Warrior, and you can hear him during Miami Valley's morning news on WHIO.
so good.
Whoa, that's quite the reaction to mixing and matching Gain scents. Let's hear another from Ashley, who mixed Gain products and went,